Hey guys, how y'all doing today? I want to apologize first and foremost for this video being as late as it is in regards to when this was actually announced. I planned on doing this a couple days ago, but as you can probably tell, I'm a little congested because I've been sick and I really wasn't feeling up to making this video a couple days ago. So today I wanted to get on here and talk about the 2025 class for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And man, this is one of the best classes we've had in a while. The amount of people that they finally put in after neglecting for years is really quite astonishing. And I honestly think that there weren't too many bad decisions that were made here in that regard. So let's just get right into it and name the people who will be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame later this year. And in the performer category, we have Bad Company, Chubby Checker, Joe Cocker, Cyndi Lauper, Outkast, Soundgarden, and the White Stripes. And for the Musical Influence Award, we have Salt and Pepper, Warren Zevon. And for the Musical Excellence Award, we have Tom Bell, Nicky Hopkins, Carol Kay. And for the Ahmet Ertegun Award, we have Lenny Waronker. And yeah, so that is the class of 2025. And man, I mean, they finally listened to so many people after so many years of these artists being shouted out and then just being passed over. To me, I think the big draw, as you can see from my shirt, is Outkast. If you've been watching my channel for years, every time I did the top 10 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame snubs, Outkast was on that list every time. And I said, the moment that they get nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they will be one of the groups that gets inducted on their first nomination. And here's the proof in the pudding right here. I mean, come on. Big Boy, Andre 3000, two of the greatest rappers of all time, let alone the greatest hip-hop duo in history, with so many iconic hits, so many, like, gold records. This was a no-brainer. Obviously, Outkast is a cultural phenomenon. I really do think, especially in hip-hop, but in pop music in general. I mean, Hey Ya is one of the biggest hits from the 2000s. And then, of course, you have so many hits on top of that. Miss Jackson, Spodioti Dopalicious. I mean, you could go on and on about how many amazing songs these guys have in their back catalog, and one of the most deserving, if not the most deserving induction in this year's class. And it's going to be great to be able to see Big Boy and Andre perform together once again. Maybe they do Bombs Over Baghdad or something. That would be really awesome, and I can't wait to see the two reunite on stage for the first time in probably almost 10 years. It's been a minute since Outkast went on a tour together, but I'm so excited to see them there. And then, of course, Joe Cocker. How was he never nominated before? One of the most premier vocalists of the late 1960s. That, you know, very husky and raspy voice just exploded onto the airwaves with his covers of Traffic's Feeling Alright, or his cover of the Beatles, With a Little Help from My Friends. I mean, there's so many hits from this guy. Of course, Delta Ladies, another great one that comes to mind, Up There Where We Belong. This guy, you know, wasn't necessarily the most original of artists in the sense as a songwriter, but man, the way he would interpret other people's songs and put, you know, his own unique spin on it is something so memorable. I think Feeling Alright is like one of the greatest cover songs of all time, as well as With a Little Help from My Friends. So I'm really excited to see Joe Cocker finally get in here. He's a legend of rock and roll, and I really don't know why he wasn't in beforehand. Which you could also say the same thing for Chubby Checker, who's been around since like the late 50s. And I'm of two minds when it comes to Chubby Checker, because on one hand, it is really nice to see him get inducted in his lifetime. But also, like, to me, Chubby Checker isn't much more than a novelty act. And I really think, because all his songs are about dancing, like, there isn't really a whole lot of substance to a lot of his songs. But, you know, the twist, his version of It's Great, Limbo Rock, I mean, there's quite a few songs that are just iconic, a part of popular culture. So I suppose that is why Chubby Checker got inducted. And I'm not mad about it, because, I don't think he's probably the least of all these artists on this list, but even so, he's been around for such a long time. He's an absolute veteran in the industry, and it's nice to finally see him get recognized and that he gets to be around there for it. Bad Company, one of the big super groups that hasn't been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame prior to this point. I've only listened to their first album, which is good. They got a couple of great songs. I'll have to check out more, but I don't know. I mean, I guess this is fine. I don't know if this is the most exciting to me out of all the inductees here, but I'll tell you one that is very, very exciting to me, and that is Soundgarden. I mean, wow. One of the other three big grunge acts, that trifecta of Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they should have been in a while ago, honestly, and it's really nice to see them finally get inducted. Just for Chris Cornell alone, is such an iconic vocalist. Left us far too soon, that is for sure. And I'm really excited to see them. I don't know if they'll be able to perform. I'm sure someone might be able to step into Chris Cornell's position, but I don't know if anyone will ever be able to fill Chris Cornell's shoes. And then, speaking of other big rock groups, the White Stripes. Now, this one isn't entirely surprising. They've been nominated before, but I don't know, I'm not as big on the White Stripes as a lot of other people. I like Elephant quite a bit, but I've never really been huge on them, but I understand that they are, very culturally relevant. I mean, Seven Nation Armies alone, is such an iconic track from the 2000s. Obviously an amazing song, but I don't know, I just feel like their stripped back approach to rock and roll music, I've never really fully latched onto their style, but I respect the hell out of Jack and Meg White. Especially Jack White is such a killer guitarist and such a great musician in his own right. So I suppose this makes sense as well. Really not surprised by that at all. And Cyndi Lauper, one of the last 80s icons, one of the pop icons from the 80s. One of the only few who's still alive, in fact. Funnily enough, well, not funny, but really great to see her finally be included. I mean, just off of her first album, for tracks like Girls Just Want to Have Fun and, of course, Time After Time. I mean, the list goes up, Through the Night. I mean, there's a lot of great tracks. And then, of course, later on, like True Colors. So it makes sense that she's here, been around forever. It's nice to finally see her get her due as well. And then we get to musical influence, and we got Salt and Pepper. I mean, this was a little unexpected. It wasn't really on anyone's radar, I thought. But, this makes a lot of sense. These ladies here, very influential when it comes to the development of hip-hop in the late 80s and early 90s. When it comes to style, they had it. Really defined an era, so it makes sense that they'd be in here. And it is interesting that they inducted them here as opposed to the performer category, but also, like I said, the influence is there. And then Warren Zevon, who was nominated a few years ago. I guess he's one of the guys who doesn't have enough cred to be inducted as a performer, but enough people like him and respect him to have him here. I mean, of course, he's got some great tracks. Of course, American Werewolf in London comes to mind immediately. Very interesting songwriter. I think this is a good spot for him. I don't think he's like the most prolific songwriter that he needed to be inducted into the performer categories, but it is nice to see them recognize him nonetheless. And then we get the musical excellence category. Then you got Tom Bell. Now, I'm not too familiar with him, but I understand that he was very influential in creating Philadelphia Soul in the 1970s, so definitely a big figure to be recognized. Nicky Hopkins, I mean, wow, this guy wasn't in, but I think that this is the perfect induction here. This guy played on records that range from bands like the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, the Kinks. I mean, the list goes on and on. This guy's credits, he's been on some of the most iconic records of all time, so it's really no surprise to finally give him some light and induct him into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And Carol Kay, I mean, she wasn't in before. Like, I thought she would have been inducted with the Wrecking Crew when they got in, but really, this is really such a great induction. one of the most prolific bass session musicians of all time, and it's really nice to see them honor her in her lifetime as well. I know she's getting very, very high up there in age. I think she's like 90 now, so really nice to see them finally give her her just due. And then, of course, Lenny Waronker. I mean, I don't really know a whole lot about him, but I know he is a prolific record executive, and it makes sense to have him inducted in this category. So really, like I said, I can't really complain a whole lot about a lot of these inductions here. Now, I will say some that I was surprised did not get in this year. Joy Division and New Order, which is interesting because that was their second time around, still didn't get inducted. And Mariah Carey as well. I feel like Mariah Carey is such a cultural juggernaut. Everybody knows about her, and everybody's sick of hearing her at Christmas. Not me, of course. And I really don't understand how she could have been passed over on her second nomination. But I really do think, and this is when I'm going to get in some of the prospects that I think could be happening next year. And next year is when I will also update my top 10 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame stubs. Because, of course, the list is going to change a little bit now that Outkast has gotten in. But I also want to see if anyone else gets in the next year or not. Because that will really be the litmus test, so to speak, in that regard. So, when it comes to other acts that I think could get in, obviously Mariah Carey, I think, will get in on her next nomination. I feel the same way about Joy Division, New Order, and I also feel the same way about Oasis, which, let's be honest, those guys are, the Gallagher brothers are a couple of twats, alright? So it makes sense that they wouldn't induct them just because they're not, you know, the best of lads. But you know what? Oasis is iconic. One of the, if not the most iconic Britpop group from the 90s. I think it would still be justified to induct them in. And I look forward to seeing them get in, even if they don't show up or they, you know, flip people off once they get on stage. I don't know. But some other ones that I was thinking about, definitely Fish, because Fish won the fan poll this year, and, you know, a big fan favorite. I'm wondering if that will carry them through to a lot more goodwill next time they get nominated. I think it very, very well could. Of course, only time will tell, but I have a feeling they'll probably get nominated next year. If not, the year after, and then they'll get in then. But I really do think that they're probably next up to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, if I had to guess. Another artist who has been nominated before that I think could get in is Lenny Kravitz. I definitely think that he has such an iconic presence just in general, and has such a great career to go along with it, and so it would make a lot of sense for them to finally recognize him. Now, some other people who have not been nominated before that I do think have a good shot, or at least should be on the radar, especially with some of the other people who've gotten in this year. One that comes to mind more than anything is actually Andre 3000's ex-girlfriend and his baby mama, Erykah Badu. Of course, she's much more than that, which is why I think that she should be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, she pioneered neo-soul and really brought blues and hip-hop together in a way that we had never seen before. She has an undeniably iconic presence, voice, songwriting style. I mean, she's incredible. And I think, you know, from albums like Baduism and Mama's Gun, I mean, the list goes on, but really, on and on. But yeah, so, anyways, I really do think Erykah Badu should be up next when it comes to getting a nomination at the very least. Do I think they'll induct her on her first go-around? I'm not really too sold on that if Mariah Carey can't get in, right? But I do think Erykah Badu is overdue for some recognition, and we'll see if that comes to her within the next year. Now, when it comes to first-time nominees for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think if there is one that is an absolute slam dunk for sure to happen on their first year of eligibility, I think it is absolutely the Strokes. Julian Casablancas in the game really reinvented the wheel when it came to alternative and indie rock music in a way that I think has rippled through so many different groups that came after them, whether it be Arctic Monkeys or Vampire Weekend. Their influence is just so unimpeachable, undeniable. I really do think that if they get nominated, which I'm pretty sure they will their first go around, they will absolutely be inducted their first time around. I just think that they are such an iconic rock group, and I think really shaped what the face of alternative and indie rock was for the 2000s and onwards. Another artist I have mentioned before, which kind of like with Oasis, even though Oasis has been nominated twice now, I really do think John Mayer should get a nomination. I mean, this guy not only really carved out some great pop rock hits in the early 2000s, some great albums to go along with it, from Rooms to Squares to Continuum, but man, I mean, this guy has played with blues legends like B.B. King, of all people, and of course, the Grateful Dead with Mayer and, Dead and Company. So I really do think that he is such a seasoned veteran. Say what you will about all the controversial stuff surrounding him. I think he is very well respected in that capacity, that he does deserve to be inducted. And I think if he does get nominated, he very, very well could get inducted on his first nomination. Don't quote me on that, but I do have a bit of an inkling that that could be the case. And if not, his second, for sure. But also, I really am wondering, why hasn't Jeff Buckley been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, I get it. He, died a very, very early death, unfortunately. But man, I mean, just the album Grace alone, one of the all-time one-hit wonders, so to speak. Not necessarily when it comes to, having a pop hit on the charts, but this guy was such a well-respected and still well-regarded artist almost 30 years or more after his death. So I really think that it's about time that we start looking at inducting Jeff Buckley into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's another one of those guys. I think he gets a nomination, he will get inducted first go around, because he has procured such a legendary and iconic status after his death, to this point that, yeah, everyone loves Jeff Buckley from my understanding, and so it would be one of the greatest vocalists in history. I mean, it has to be recognized in some way. Another big duo, speaking of Outkast, I really think has been looked over for some time, and I kind of get it, because they aren't quite hip-hop, they definitely aren't rock and roll, but I think one of the most iconic duos of all time after Outkast has to be Daft Punk. I mean, the two Robot Boys, I mean, they gotta get in. What they did for EDM music and just everything in between is so, so incredible. They're so iconic at this point, between Discovery and Random Access Memories and all the hits that they had. One More Time, Get Lucky. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And of course, after their disbandment, almost 5 years ago now, they really solidified themselves as one of the most iconic duos in history. So I really do think it's about time that Daft Punk gets some recognition from the Hall of Fame as well. And another iconic group that surprisingly hasn't, well, maybe not surprisingly, but I think this is a group that will absolutely get inducted on their first nomination, and that is Coldplay. I really don't know how they've been looked over. I know they recently just passed, a couple years ago, being eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame finally, so it would make sense. I mean, they're maybe the most iconic pop rock band of the 2000s. I mean, of course, maybe they've fallen off a little bit, but I just think their early records, like A Rush of Blood to the Head, Viva La Vida, I mean, all those songs, Clocks, The Scientist, Viva La Vida, I mean, there are so Yellow. I could go on and on about how many great songs that Chris Martin and the gang have under their belt to begin with. But yeah, I think if they get nominated next year, they're easily going to be inducted first go around, no question about it. They're just that iconic and undeniable. Another artist who I think has been passed over now for around the same amount of time is Miss Lauryn Hill. I get she only has that one album, but that album is one of the most iconic records in history. And I think, of course, her, career with the Fugees as well. I think that there would be a lot of goodwill towards her getting an induction if she gets nominated. I don't think it's a slam dunk, to be certain, but I do think just her influence alone is so undeniable in pop music and hip-hop especially. Really an unbelievable talent like no other. She can rap. She's one of the greatest rappers of all time. She can also sing like you can't believe. So I really do think Lauryn Hill should get in. I mean, considering Missy Elliott's in, considering Mary J. Blige, I really do think it's about time that they get around to her. Another great female artist that I think should be recognized, even though I think it might take a few more years for her to be recognized, is Bjork. I mean, one of the most boundary-pushing artists in history, really broke so much ground when it comes to electronica and so many other, crazy musical ideas and landscapes that she creates in her music and her albums. She really is an artist if there ever was one. I think one of the greatest artists of all time, and she's been around obviously with her other band since like the late 80s, but she's been around since like the early 90s, so I think it is about time that they get around to her. Another iconic female singer-songwriter from the 90s that, I'm not entirely surprised they haven't gotten to yet, but I think would be very, very well deserved if she got a nomination next year, is Alanis Morissette. Yet again, she had a little bit more than Lauryn Hill, and it's not like she's stopped making music ever since Jagged Little Pill, but that album alone has so many iconic hits, from Hands in My Pocket, Ironic, Head Over Feet, You Oughta Know. I mean, she really basically transformed the landscape of, female-driven pop, singer-songwriter music going into the 2000s, and just the pop music scene as a whole. Like, that whole style of songwriting, that sound, is just so definitive and so intrinsically linked to her that it's not even funny. And so Alanis Morissette really, I think, is overdue to be recognized as well. So many people I can go on about. Another group that I think is about to be eligible, Linkin Park. I haven't gotten into them too much, but I just think that they're one of the most iconic groups. I mean, especially for my generation, they grew up listening to Linkin Park. And Chester Bennington, I mean, another one who, left us far too soon, to the same way of Chris Cornell. I really do think that they are iconic enough to warrant getting a nomination. And I think it is very likely. I don't know if they'll get in on their first try, but I do think that at some point they will be recognized down the line. If not in the next year, who's to say? And one more person I want to mention who just, I think, became eligible this year. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen next year, but I think one of the absolute finest singer-songwriters of their generation that is eligible to get in is Sufjan Stevens. I mean, this guy is unbelievable. Have you heard Javelin, his last album? It's incredible. So I think he has been around so long. He's a critical darling. I feel like, true music fans really, really love and appreciate his work. And I do think it is time for him to be recognized by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yet again, if it takes a few years, I understand. I mean, Jim Croce and Gordon Lightfoot aren't even in, or never been nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I do think, though, there is a bit of, more cultural relevance to Sufjan Stevens that those older guys don't have. And I just think it would be tremendous to, nominate one of the finest artists of his generation from the past 25 years or more. And yeah, so that's really all I have to say, which I suppose, wasn't brief. But I think that is what I'm predicting for next year. Of course, I'm not predicting all of them to get in, but I think these are a lot of potential players who could be recognized again, or be recognized for the first time. And of course, there's a lot of older artists I didn't mention, just because you never know, how these things are going to pan out. I mean, they'll just pull Joe Cocker out of their ass out of nowhere. You know what I mean? So I do think, though, that it is very promising considering this batch of inductees from this year that they will continue a similar trend going forward now that Jan Wenner's gone. I think there's going to be a lot less gatekeeping, which is something that I think has plagued the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since its inception. And I really hope that they continue this streak of recognizing really, really great talent and, talent that everybody themselves recognizes as well. So yeah, guys, let me know what you think about this year's inductees in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame down below, and let me know who you think should be inducted within the next coming year or more. And I really, really would love to start that conversation, but let's not, act like dinosaurs here, okay? That's all I'm going to say in that regard. I think you know what I mean. But regardless, I'm really, really excited that I could have gotten on here and talked to you guys about this. And so please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this from time to time. And if not, I got a lot of movie reviews on here. I do some album reviews sometimes. I do some game news, speculation on certain leaks and things. So please stay tuned for all that and more if you are interested in seeing it. And I will talk to you guys very soon.